Hello, everyone. I'm Ellie from Nourishment Redacted, and welcome to Lioness Lifestyle Live. Yay!
And yay, it's another Tuesday. And I'm Cristie at Meeting Wellness, and we're so excited to meet with you this evening. We're glad you are all here.
I'm Adrian. You can find me at BiggestLoserCarnivore. And tonight I am so excited. We have a woman that's just traveled the world and experienced so many things. I'm so excited to hear her story. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Put QQQ or question mark, so we can grab it and ask her the questions.
Absolutely. I hope you guys have lots of questions for her. But now it is time for this week's Roar of the Week. And if you're new here, what we do is we love it if you guys go and watch the replay after the show and then comment down below. And what I'll do is I'll go through on any of the channels and I'll hunt through and find a comment that someone left to shout out. And so this week's Roar of the Week from last week's episode was from Brain Over Binge Coach Julie. And she just said, thank you for another great informative video. So Julie, we appreciate you. Thank you for being this week's Roar of the Week. And our guest is backstage, but she'll be here in a minute.
So I guess we could just chat for a little bit.
Oh, there she is. There she is.
All right, let me get all set up. Don't mind me, guys.
Ellie's fighting a little bug, but she's here.
I'm here. I'm happy to be here. Okay, so I am so happy to welcome our guest, Cara. How was that?
I was ready. I was literally off camera. I was literally backstage.
Oh yeah, we're like, where is she? It's time for her to come on. There she is.
Well, we're so excited to meet you. Thanks for being on the show. If you could please tell our audience about yourself and how you found carnivore, and I now know you're doing animal-based. We'd love to know all those juicy details.
Okay. I did write some crib notes, so I'll try not to read. I'll try to talk, but I'll glance down every now and again because I'm a bit of a waffler. But the first thing I wrote was that it starts at home. I'm blessed because my mother is from Italian heritage, and my father is English, but my grandfather, his father was in the British military. So my dad spent time in Singapore as a child, Germany as a child. So my parents both have a very wide and sort of varied and rich diet. And whenever they vary away from the diet, their main staple diet is a Mediterranean diet. So I grew up very middle class, but my parents always cooked. You know, it was something that we made a priority, was cooking together and eating fresh food. So I feel like I'm blessed because I had a good start in life, because I was already kind of avoiding the processed food and the junk food and of course we did takeaways, everyone does, but I started out in my childhood eating a very varied diet. My parents made me everything, you know, pork knuckle, pig's trotter, liver, kidney, you know, wild and wonderful things, seafood, and everywhere. And my dad's a pilot, so of course everywhere we went, he would always try to find the most exotic thing on the menu. And so I think my stomach and my intestines took a bit of an onslaught as a teenager, but I always ate well, in the sense that I was always avoiding the really nasty processed foods, the processed meats. I was making a lot of stuff fresh, but I was eating I would say like the Mediterranean diet, plus all the nonsense that you eat when you're 19 and drinking, or because we can drink in the UK at 19. So of course I drank a lot as a teenager and a young adult. So while my diet was good, my lifestyle choices were typical of somebody 20 years ago at university. I you know, a lot of partying, a lot of drinking, a lot of late night food, a lot of late night pizzas, takeaways on the way home. So it was like I was good in one hand and kind of bad in the other. But I stayed in relatively good health because I've always been quite sporty. So I played hockey. I lived in the UK growing up, so I played field hockey. I did karate for many years. My whole family did. And when I was 18, I left home and moved to Canada to become a snowboarding instructor. And again, I was just eating a very normal diet. I would always buy my vegetables. I would always cook my food if I could at home because I save money. But I think that if I hadn't had exercise in my life, I think I would have struggled with my weight, and I think I would have struggled with my skin and other things, because there were definitely times that my body suffered because I was overindulging in alcohol particularly, and then all of the nonsense and the junk that you eat and the carbohydrates and the stuff that you crave the next day. So I didn't have, I would say that my food journey was like very average, very normal. You know, I ate a very balanced diet. I did the naughty cheating things. I did the drinking part, but I kind of balanced it out with the fact that I liked a lot of exercise and I liked to get out and get in the fresh air. But I never really followed any specific diets. I ate everything because my parents made me as a child. So I really just ate what was available, as long as it wasn't processed, it wasn't full of artificial flavors and food additives. And then after being in Canada for a couple of years and teaching snowboarding, I came back to the UK and went to university in Scotland. I did a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree. And again, it's the same thing, you know, drinking, partying, but still going to the gym, still getting the exercise. And so averaging out. I was never in great health, but I was never in poor health. I then took a full-time job in the oil industry, and I worked in the offshore oil field, and I ate better because I had a bit of money coming in. So my partner and I at the time, we could afford to go and buy steaks now, and we were living in Scotland, so we had Aberdeen Angus steak that was dry hung for 46 days, and we had access to fresh mackerel from the North Sea. And so I wasn't eating any specific kind of diet. I was just, finally I had the income, and I was a bit older and not partying as much. So my diet was just improving with time. And around that age, around my mid-20s, I really became really into removing the chemicals from my life. So I started with my beauty products. I started with my cleaning products. I went through a phase of making all my own cleaning products with lemon essential oil and baking soda and vinegar. And I wanted to remove all of the chemicals from my diet. And around the same time, I got very obsessed with gut health. So I started reading a lot of books about the microbiome, gut health. I read a book by, I think it's Dr. Tim Spector. I forget the name now, but I became very interested in how things externally affect the body internally, and the relationship between the bacteria of the body and specifically gut, the kind of brain gut axis. But I wasn't looking at the nutritional content of my food. I was looking at removing all of the bad stuff. So for years, I really focused on, I wasn't thinking about how much B6 was in something or folate or magnesium. I was thinking, what does this jar have in it? What are these products? Okay, I don't know what that is. I'm not going to eat it. So I was removing all the nasty stuff because I was studying and reading about, you know, the effect that it has on the whole body system, the endocrine system, the hormone system. And I wanted to have a good, healthy body. And I started improving my health. So this brings me up to about 30, 31. I've started doing yoga. So now I'm hanging out with lots of vegans and lots of yogis. And, you know, I'm removing even more of the chemicals from my life. And I'm making all my own body soaps. And but at that time, I left my job in the oil field because the oil price crashed, and I took a sabbatical that has now lasted 8 years. And I moved to Indonesia. So I went from a 9 to 5, working in an office. You know, I had a pretty interesting job, so I was lucky that I traveled a lot. So I wasn't always sat at my desk in a sedentary position, but I was desk-based increasingly as I kind of became more senior and more experienced, and it just wasn't working for me. I was feeling depressed. I was feeling very uninspired. I can't sit. I mean, you can see from how much I wiggle around, I'm not much of a sitting still person. So when the opportunity came to take a bit of time off, I jumped at it, and I packed up everything and moved to Indonesia, to a small island between Bali and Lombok called the Gili Islands. And I became a scuba diving instructor. And so now I'm living in Indonesia. I don't have any money because I'm teaching scuba diving. So I'm certainly not buying Aberdeen Angus steaks anymore or any of that. But, you know, when you're on those small islands, you can live quite a natural lifestyle. You have mangoes, you have coconuts, you have papayas, you have fresh fish from the Indo-Pacific. So again, my diet shifted. But because I didn't have a lot of money, I was eating a lot of rice. Indonesian food is like all Asian food is heavily rice-based. So the bulk of my calories was coming from rice, and with a little bit of chicken on top or a little bit of fish on top. But I certainly didn't have access to good quality meat on an island like that. I didn't have access to cheese, butter. You know, it was rice and chicken and fish. peanuts and, you know, mangoes and coconuts. And I never felt like my health was suffering, but all my life I always had problems with, I would say, fluctuations in my mood. I never felt depressed constantly. I never felt anxious constantly, but I always felt like I was riding this roller coaster of ups and downs. And I would have my really good days. And on those days, I felt like I could take on the world. And then I would have my really low days. And those are the days when people said, you need to take an SSRI, you need to go and see a doctor. But the low days were never long enough and pronounced enough that I ever felt that it was problematic enough for me to seek like treatment. But I never quite felt right. And I suffered a lot with, I'm hypermobile. So I have a lot of joints dislocating, shoulders dislocating, things bending in the wrong direction. Luckily, I'm kind of big and strong, so I never broke any bones. But I just, it's hard to describe, because when I was in Indonesia and I was surrounded by yogis and surrounded by, you know, people who just wanted to live that very yogi natural lifestyle, I sort of started leaning towards vegetarianism, because at the time it seemed like that was the thing that I could do on the island, where I could, because there were so many cafes doing Buddha bowls and smoothie bowls with 6 different kinds of fruits chopped on top, and they were affordable. So I ended up, almost without choosing, I ended up sort of becoming vegetarian. And then once I realized I was mostly vegetarian, I just started telling people I was vegetarian, and I'm not even sure why. I had always had an issue with animal husbandry, so I never wanted to support large-scale animal farming. Which, as a student at university, if I couldn't afford the good quality meat, I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy the cheap chicken breasts. I didn't buy the cheap mince. I saved up money and I bought good quality meat. But of course, it was few and far between, because I didn't have the funds for it. And then Indonesia, it just wasn't there, and so. When I think back now, I'm not really sure how actually I became a vegetarian, but at the time I was passionate about not supporting large scale animal farming, because I don't believe animals should be treated that way. I was passionate about supporting grass-fed, locally produced, you know, natural diet, free range animals. And of course, I didn't have any of that on a small island. And then sort of the years just went by and I just sort of became vegetarian. And I never dated any vegetarians. No one ever asked me to do it. I think I thought that I was doing the right thing. And, you know, 7-8 years ago, it was very in vogue. It was very in vogue to wake up and do sunrise yoga and have a chai latte and, you know, eat a smoothie bowl. And no disrespect to people that live and eat that way. That is a far, far better way of eating than eating a junk food breakfast every day or a Starbucks coffee with 1 million grams of sugar in it. So I'm not being negative about that way of eating. But looking back, I thought I was in great health because I was skinny. And I transitioned from teaching scuba diving into teaching free diving, which is a lot more physical. And so I thought I was great because for the first time in my life, I was thin enough to wear denim shorts and feel comfortable. I had no stomach. I had a tiny waist. I had all my shoulders and bones protruding. But I thought that I was living well because I was super slim and I was basically existing on fruits. And I thought that I was in great health. And so I kind of extended that diet for quite a few years. Fast forward to now, I'm 38. I was 37 last year. From Indonesia, I went to the Cayman Islands teaching free diving, and I worked at the Ritz-Carlton, which is great because they gave us great food. So thank you, Ritz-Carlton. Thank you for all the staff meals. So I ate good food in the Cayman Islands, but again, vegetables, fruit, and fish. From the Cayman Islands, I went to Honduras, more free diving, pretty much the same diet. The only change was that the alcohol consumption has been reducing, and now I'm sober. And then from Honduras, I went to Texas, and then from Texas, I came down here to Mexico, and I've been in Mexico for a couple of years. And things were going good. I'm teaching free diving. I look good, but I was absolutely exhausted all the time. And I would put on a brave face to go to work, and I would have this energy at my work day. And I would get into my house, and teaching, free diving is a physical sport. And here in Mexico, we have to drive quite a long way from where we live to where the water is. So it's a long day, a lot of driving on the highway in Mexico, which is stressful. Teaching in the water for maybe 2 hours. Maybe there was a 2-hour classroom session before that, driving home again 2 hours. So, a 10-hour day with 3 hours of physicality in it. And as the years went on, my ability to do that got less and less and less. And I put it down to age, but 38, 36, 37 is not old. I didn't really appreciate how much my energy and my exhaustion levels were slipping. And then I sort of realized that this is all I do. I go to work, I come home, I collapse, I eat a vegetarian burrito, and I go to bed. I didn't have the energy to socialize. I didn't have the energy to go to the gym. I didn't have the energy to even to call my family. I was just completely exhausted. And I just kept putting it down to the fact that the job was physical and that I was concentrating hard on the highway because I'm responsible for people in the car. And, but looking back, I realized how depleted I was, but it had crept up on me so slowly that I hadn't appreciated how much things had changed. And of course, as you get older, I didn't know. People say you hit 35 and it's all downhill and you can't stay in good shape. And so I didn't know if this was just like the natural evolution of me and my energy levels. And of course, my adrenaline was high all the time. My anxiety was up and down all the time. Nothing was ever bad enough to like seek treatment, but I never felt optimal. And I certainly didn't feel strong. I felt like every time I put on a bit of muscle, as soon as I had a busy couple of days in the water, I burned all that muscle off my body again. And so what the real turning moment for me was I started getting tachycardia, which is a rapid heart rate. And in freediving, we're really teaching people how to slow down. I know now I'm in my talking mode, but in freediving, we're really looking to teach people to take a breath, to slow down, to relax, to get on top of your breathing and to stimulate the vagus nerve and let your abdomen out. And we're really coaching people on how to stay relaxed and how to stay calm, which should lend itself to having quite a slow heart rate. And so this idea that I was having these random bouts of quite significant tachycardia, I couldn't understand it. It didn't make sense. It certainly, certainly with my experience with freediving, I teach people how to relax and slow their heart rate down for a living, but I couldn't apply it to myself. No matter what I did, I couldn't get on top of my heart rate. And it was almost like the more I became aware of it, the worse it was getting. And the crucial moment was, I have a pulse ox because we use them when we're teaching classes. So I had the pulse oximeter on my finger and I was sitting on the couch and my heart rate was 165. And I made a video. And so I showed myself sitting down. I showed the pulse ox. And once it gets over 150, it's going beep, 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 beep. So I'm filming and I sent it to a doctor friend. And I said, is this normal? And I don't normally ask my friends for things like that, but I was scared. And so I said to him, is this normal? Do I need to seek treatment? Is this anxiety? And he said, you need to see a doctor. You need to see a cardiologist, because if you didn't just run up and down the stairs 6 times and you're sitting on the couch, you shouldn't have a heart rate of 165. And it was climbing. It was going, I was breathing it down to about 135 and then it was rocketing back up again. And I could not get on top of my heart rate. So I sent those videos to a cardiologist who said, yeah, come and see me, come tomorrow. And so I went from being this person who'd never been in hospital, like other than injuries from sports. I'd never been in the hospital. I've not had surgeries. I've almost never go to the doctor. I don't go to the dentist. I'm just, I didn't need to. And so all of a sudden at 37, I'm seeing a private cardiologist and I'm a vegetarian freediving instructor. It just wasn't making sense in my mind. And of course I had the EKG, I had a lung x-ray to check my lungs were good in case it was a pulmonary injury. He did a full exam. I wore the Holter monitor for 24 hours and my average heart rate over 24 hours was 94. And it was a real shock to me. And I asked him, can this be stress? Can this be hormones? Can this just be my personality type? And he said, no. He said, if you're very stressed and anxious and worried, yes, your heart rate can climb to 100, 105. If you're really nervous about something, 120, 125, but 150 plus, no, that's not this controlling that. That's something physiological. And so I'm seeking out treatment. I'm ongoing. I saw an endocrinologist. I had some blood tests, thyroid check. Everything was normal. And around the time that I'm struggling with the cardiologist, my boyfriend, who God bless him is from Texas, said, you need to eat some meat. And it was the first time in years anyone had ever told me to eat meat, because I'd always been surrounded by, and again, no disrespect, I was one of them. I'd been surrounded by the yogi, vegan, veggie, and so that was my community. That was my lifestyle. And we were all skinny because we always are. So I never thought meat was bad for me. I just was avoiding meat because I didn't have the money to eat the quality of meat that I wanted to eat. And I didn't want to eat really cheap meat because I've been to poor quality farms and I don't want to A, eat it, or B, support it. And I remember he went out and bought 2 ribeye steaks, and he was angry because I wanted to fry them in the pan because I'm European, and he wanted to cook them upstairs on the barbecue. We settled for pan frying them in butter. I have to admit, the barbecue is much better. I'm sorry, Europeans. It's just better on the barbecue. But we don't do that because it's raining all the time. So, and I distinctly remember sitting down to eat that ribeye. And of course, I always had meat in my life as a young person in Italy, eating all sorts of sausages and, tripe and tongue. And I'd always explored with food. And this fatty ribeye that was cooked medium rare was put on a plate in front of me, and I inhaled it. And it was like a light bulb moment. And I know it sounds corny, but it really was a light bulb moment. It was like I could feel something and I was like, I need more of this. And it was like a transition. And it was in that moment, I was immediately calculating, like, how can I eat one of these every day? Like, what do I need to cut out of my life? Where can I save money? That's why the alcohol went. It's not, I think it's better to not drink. My experience is that. But I wanted to save the money because I want to spend $10 on a steak, not $10 on a cocktail. So from that was almost a year ago, a year and 1 month ago. And from that day, that was it. I was starting to eat meat again. And my boyfriend was listening at the time, and still does, listening to Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan's a big fan of the carnivore diet. Joe Rogan had Jordan Peterson on. Jordan Peterson had been talking about his experience and his daughter's experience. And so we were listening to those podcasts together. And then I kind of took that and just went with it. So I just absorbed myself in the world of the carnivore diet. I listened to the Carnivore Code by Paul Saladino on Audible. I listened to Lies My Doctor Told Me by Ken Berry. I listened to a good chunk of the Carnivore Code by Judy Cho, the Carnivore Cure, I think. I started listening to any podcasts by Paul Saladino, Ken Berry, Anthony, I'm going to say his name wrong, Anthony Shafoli, Plant Free MD, I think he is. Or
Chafee, Anthony Chafee.
Anthony Chafee, yep. Mm-hmm. And so everything I was seeing made sense. The literature made sense. I read the Harvard study. I read the study, like not the summary. I downloaded it. I took a while. I dug around online and found it for free and started sending it to everybody. And I know none of them read it, but I read the Harvard carnivore study from front to back because I'm a nerd. I'm a scientist. I'm an engineer. So I like to read things, but it wasn't that. I wasn't seeking out justification in the literature. My body felt so good that I knew I was like, I feel this. I feel the difference. I see the difference in my hair, my skin, the color of the whites of my eyes, the way I sleep, my libido, everything improved. And the improvements just increased and increased and increased as I kept eating more meat. And so I really kind of went full swing vegan vegetarian, straight into being carnivore obsessed. And I've been through the whole conversation with people about, lipids and fats and triglycerides and cholesterol. And I mean, I eat butter like it's going out of fashion. I will pick up a block of butter and just, I love butter. And every time it's just like everyone that talks to me, I'd say, there's one thing you're going to do, put butter in your diet. And I felt the change everywhere. I felt my ligaments get softer. I felt my flexibility improve, my freediving improved without gym, without any kind of extra additional work. The quality of my anxiety improved, my brain fog lifted almost instantly. And I still have my swings, but I have the mental clarity now to realize that I'm in a swing instead of going down the roller coaster and then up and sort of not almost feeling like I was trying to keep up with myself. When I eat this way, I feel like I'm mentally more aware of how I am. So I notice I'm having a bad day and I say, okay, I'm having a bad day. I'll eat dates with butter all day. And then when I'm having a good day, I feel that I'm having a good day and I go to the gym and I work out hard. And there was something about switching to carnivore that gave my brain the ability to talk to my body again. And I told everybody that when I was vegetarian, I felt like my consciousness felt like it was up here somewhere. And as soon as I started eating meat, it came my brain came back down into my body, and it was like a feeling of being grounded, but rather than the grounding contact with the earth, I felt myself kind of come back into my body. It's like my center of my personality is in here now, whereas it always felt like it was somewhere outside of me before. And I'm so passionate about it because I felt the changes and I lived the changes, and I have had no health problems since I started eating this way. And I think that as humans, we act like we have this knowledge of our diet, but we really don't. And we are so much more intuitive than we realize. And I've eaten the carnivore diet on 100% intuition. I never did grams per pound of body weight. If I felt like I wanted fat, I ate loads of fat and butter. If I felt like I wanted salt, I ate loads of salt. So I apologize because I don't have like a model to follow. I just followed it based on how I feel, which is hard for people because they're like, well, what do I do? And I say, listen to your body. I know it sounds like a corny, hippie thing to say, but that's what I've been doing. And it's worked for me so well. And so now I'm kind of like, I don't know where I'm going, but I know that I'm never going back to where I was before. And I know that everything that I read and that I learn, not only does it make sense intuitively in my body, it makes sense academically. So that's where I am now.
What a great story. What a fantastic story. I'm so glad that you came on the show and we found you, and that you have so much energy and so much life to you. Like everyone in the comments, they're like, oh, she's so amazing. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. I'm curious. I have rosacea, so I'm always red. So we're all red here. So this is so good, Nia says. Exactly. I was curious because my sister, she has EDS. She's hypermobile. Do you have EDS?
Yes, I've never had I have not been diagnosed with it, but I have checked off enough of I think there's 10 joints that have to that can move, and depending on your like 1 to 4, 4 to 7, and 7 to 10, and I'm at least 6 or 7. So I think I would be in the ED1 range. Very flexible. I did a lot of ballet as a kid. I could do all the yoga poses now, even without practice. And the stability of my joints has improved massively. I have an old injury from snowboarding where my shoulder would dislocate frequently, like, bending over and sneezing, and my shoulder would pop out and I'd have to stick it back in again. And it hasn't dislocated since I switched to carnivore. And I now have the confidence to go to the gym and actually do overhead and movements where for years I kept my shoulder in a very sort of like nervous position where I didn't want to use it. It's amazing how much stronger, not just strength in the muscles, but how much stronger the connecting points, the fascia and the tissue of my body feels, because I have so much more collagen in me now. I mean, I don't know if that's the reason, but I suspect that I've put back the collagen that I was robbing from my tissues by not eating enough of it for quite a few years. But that's my non-scientific.
So I just heard you say go to the gym. So let me just clarify something. When you were a vegetarian, you barely had energy to do what you're doing now, like go out and do your free diving.
No, I didn't get to do much. No.
That's what I was going to say. But now not only are you free diving and instructing that still, but now you have energy to do things like go to the gym.
I'm going to the gym at like 9:30 at night and then working out until 11 and then getting a Burger King triple on the way home and throwing away the bun and just eating
I love it.
Patties with cheese.
I love it.
I have a lot of energy. And, my boyfriend James and I were talking today, and I wasn't feeling good this morning. And I said to him, I'm worried because I worried that I'm not going to do well. Not that it's a performance, but I wanted to feel good. And I was feeling terrible this morning. And I've been eating clean for days. I haven't, wavered. And he said, look, remember that you feel good a third of the time, you feel great a third of the time, and you feel about average, below average a third of the time. And I think that you have to remember that if you're going to switch to the carnivore diet, it's not a magical elixir. You're still going to have brain fog some days. You're still going to have bad days. You're still going to have low energy. But the average of how I feel across all the metrics is so much more improved. And I definitely have much more energy physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything. And I've taken the caffeine out of my diet. I've taken the alcohol out. So those were the things that were supplementing my mood previously. So it's like you don't even need those mood supplementing sort of things anymore, because if you eat this way, I feel that it gives you that foundation from which you can go and do whatever you set your mind to, but you're not going to have that energy and that power every day. I definitely don't, but the average is so much more improved that it's impossible to deny.
So have you gained any muscle, any weight? How has that gone for you?
Yeah. Yes. And I never did before, because I injured my shoulder at 19. I had a snowboarding accident at 19, and I've got strong legs. I always had strong legs from snowboarding and karate and hockey. So I always had good legs and a lot of kicking and freediving. So the legs were never an issue, but I had no core strength. I had no upper body strength. And I started real slow. I started with, 5-pound dumbbells. And, after 3 days, I was like, oh, it's quite easy now. So go up to 8. That got easy quickly. And, now I'm doing 20 pounds on an arm. And the numbers don't matter. But I know that I could not have made that progress the way that I was eating before, because I would work really hard to put on a little bit of muscle. And then if I had a couple of busy days with long days in the ocean, it would get eaten up and used for, because I need a lot of energy when you're kicking and swimming all day in the ocean with currents, and it's a big calorie demand. And I couldn't keep muscle on because I was burning it off all the time. And now not only can I put muscle on, I can retain it. And even if I don't go to the gym for 10 days, I go back and I do 1 or 2 good sessions and it comes back. So I think it just gives you that solid baseline. The only way I can describe it is I feel like I have more flesh now. Like I feel like there's more of me, and it's not just muscle, it's actual like tissue. Like I was, and I look back at pictures of me 5 years ago when I was really skinny, and I was proud of how skinny I was, because I was always a bigger girl. I'm 5'8", I always had big thighs. And so I wanted to be one of those skinny girls. I wanted to be that yogi that can wear the size 2 Lululemon. And I was for a while. And I at that time, I thought I was the most attractive I've ever been. And now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I was so frail. So always choose a man that likes you to have muscles. Don't ever choose men that want you to be super skinny.
I like it.
I love that. So we have a fellow free diver here tonight. It's Bruce, and he says he's excited about today's show because he's a free diver, and he has a few questions specific to that. So his first question is, which organization is your free diving certification in?
I started as an IDA instructor, and then I transitioned to, I'm also a PADI instructor, but I've never taught a PADI course. PADI Scuba also does PADI freediving, but I'm an IDA instructor. And about 2 years ago, I became a Molchanovs instructor. So I'm teaching IDA and Molchanovs.
Okay. And then these questions, I'll put them both up because they're kind of similar. But he's asking, have you noticed a difference in your freediving bottom time and also your freediving performance overall?
Okay. So bottom time, you can just think of as a breath hold. We call it bottom time because when people are spearfishing, they're thinking, how long can they go under, stay down at the bottom, looking for something, shoot it and come back up. But that's not what I teach. When we teach that in freediving, we're just staying in a pool and holding our breath. So it's breath hold training. It's how long your body can tolerate being without oxygen. A big difference. Not a difference enough that, it would be sort of, if you were struggling and you went to Carnivore, suddenly you'd have these magic numbers. But in terms of holding your breath for a long time is mentally challenging. Your body starts to feel uncomfortable, but we can all be uncomfortable. We've all had our legs waxed. Being uncomfortable is not the issue. The issue is tolerating the discomfort in your mind. And I feel like the clarity and the releasing of the brain fog and this coming back down into my body of my mind, I wouldn't say that my physical, I think if you measured my VO2 max and all the metrics, I don't know if I would say that physically there's been a massive increase in the difference, but my mental capacity to tolerate anything now, traffic, discomfort, my parents, I love them, but anything that used to send me into a mental spiral, I have a lot more control over that now. So I think that with the bottom time thing, with the holding the breath thing, my mind is much stronger. And then the freediving performance, he's kind of referring to like how good I am or how good a freediver would be at going deep in the water and coming back again. Yes, much better. Like I said, I was always strong and I always had strong legs from the previous sports. So it's not like I suddenly could do 50 or 100% more in terms of depth, but 30 meters started to feel really easy, whereas it was, it was a little bit of a challenge, small challenge for me as an instructor. 40 meters became easy, whereas 120 feet had always been, something I had to work for. So yeah, a big improvement in the freediving. And something I really noticed was that I don't get as cold anymore. When I used to go in the water here is in the 70s. And so I would wear a 5mm wetsuit, which is quite a lot in the 70-degree water. And by the end of the session, I was hypothermic. Like my hands were white. I was shivering and shaking. And I'm standing in the Mexican heat, shivering and shaking. And since I went carnivore, my body's ability to retain heat in the water, a dramatic improvement. I'm enjoying my freediving now more because I can stay in the water 2 hours and physically be comfortable the whole time. So that was a big change for me. Yeah. Good question.
We have another question here. It says, how often do you eat, and do you train in the gym fasted, or do you prefer to eat first?
Well, as you can tell, I'm kind of all over the place. So following a routine is really challenging for me because I get mentally bored of it. It's not that I don't want to do it or don't have the willpower. So I do a lot of things. If I overeat the day before, when I wake up in the morning, I might just not eat breakfast because I don't feel that I need the food. But as soon as I'm hungry, I eat. I spent so many years denying myself food, trying to be smaller or more petite than I was because I felt like a big girl. So the joy of carnivore for me is that I eat when I want and I eat until I'm full. And it's such a beautiful relationship to have with food. It's just, I don't think about, and again, I would say that if you feel comfortable listening to your intuition, listen to your intuition, because your body will tell you. Your body has been evolving for 3 billion years. We crawled out of the primordial soup. 3 billion years ago, well, we didn't crawl, but we were in it as single-celled organisms. And so this idea that the last 100 years of our intellectual academia is somehow smarter than 3 billion years of evolution, I don't buy it. And I think that we've been taught not to listen to our intuition, and we've been told that we have to listen to what this person says and follow directions from this, and the government's going to advise us. And for me, it's a great question. If I want to go to the gym fasted because that's how I feel in that moment, that's what I do. If I want to stuff the central part of a burger from Burger King in my mouth and throw the bun away on the way to the gym, I'll do that. I think that a person who is a bit more organized and a person who is a bit more structured would probably have a little bit more of a routine than me. But what I would say is that the joy I felt at just opening the fridge and deciding I'm going to defrost that New York and eat it. I'm going to cook half of that packet of mince. I'm going to eat 6 eggs, and I'm going to put lashings of Kerrygold butter on top and more mold and sea salt than most people would find acceptable. The joy of that freedom of eating meant that I just do what I want, but I'm not eating from here. I'm eating from here, from my stomach. I'm eating when my body wants food, because I'm only introducing the kind of food into my body that it wants. So I'm not emotional eating. I'm not chasing caffeine dips. I'm not chasing sugar crashes. I'm not emotionally eating because my hormones are all over the place. I know when I want food because my body says, hey, eat now. And then I just eat whatever but I'm limited in what I eat. So I can indulge because I do stick to the beef, the eggs, the salt, the butter, the 80-20 mince here in Mexico. And then when I'm in Texas, I have all that lovely grass-fed, and it's just a different world there. But yeah, I think for me, I just eat the way that feels natural to my body.
So you first said that you were sticking to the more high quality meats, but now that you've seen how your body feels and maybe you don't have access, or maybe some people don't have access, what do they do?
Mince is great, and frozen mince for me has been a godsend here in Mexico because I can get grass fed. It's just more than I can afford. So the frozen mince is a real lifesaver for me. And I feel like I can do so much with it. I get the 80-20. I cook it in a lot of butter. I love Kerrygold. I'm lucky I can get that here. And so mince has been I don't make a lot teaching freediving. It's not a job in the oil industry. It's a professional career in the respect, but it's not a high earning career. So I have to plan how I'm going to eat this way. And, cutting out the luxuries like the alcohol and the takeaway coffee freed up quite a lot of money for me, really. I'm not buying. I mean, I've cut so many things out of my lifestyle. Like, I don't spend money on things anymore because I want to spend money on meat. And I know that's it's a weird thing to say, but I feel so much better when I eat good meat that I'm happy to live in old clothes. I'm happy to, have my mum's hand-me-down jewelry and my mum's unwanted lipsticks. And I think I understand. So many people ask me, like, how can you afford this diet? But I think that if you sit down and write down what you actually spend money on in a week, and then write down what a carnivore diet would cost you, I think in most parts of the world, you could access meat that would, for me, I'd rather eat low quality meat than eat vegetables at this point, because the vegetables hurt my stomach now. So it's difficult, because the problem with the low quality meat is I don't want to support the production methods. And I think that hopefully if more people want to eat this way, I think that the availability of cheap meat, quality cheap meat, which you can get, not cheap, I don't want to say cheap, affordable quality meat, will become more popular. Definitely, even the supermarkets in Texas now, even in the last year, they've started carrying so much more bison meat, bison steaks, bison mince, grass-fed. They even do mince with organs mixed in, so you can get your organs. So if you can afford to buy a couple of pounds of frozen mince a week and start with that and see how you feel, I think you'll feel so much better that you'll find a way to make it work financially, And, when people ask me what I want for Christmas, I say, I want money to buy steaks. Mom and Dad, I'll have $100 and I'll buy 8 grass-fed steaks frozen and put them in the freezer, or, whatever it is. So, yeah.
So you mentioned there was a few transitions you did. You talked about, and I was just curious as to how those transitions went for you. First, going vegetarian to carnivore. So I understand why, and I've heard many people going vegan or vegetarian to carnivore say very similar to you. Like, my brain switched on, it was very fast. But did you have any adaptation symptoms after that initial, like, this is good for me? And then how was it, like, quitting alcohol and then quitting caffeine? Like, was that, I've heard some people say going carnivore makes quitting those things a little easier. I was just wondering if you found that to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually taken off the caffeine because of the tachycardia. So I was already weaning myself off coffee anyway. But I have to say, coming from an Italian family, I started drinking strong black coffee as a teenager. So my body had been very used to caffeine. But what I find now is that I feel like when you eat carnivore, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist, so I don't want to sort of misspeak on the science side, but my interpretation is that my stomach, my gut, my intestines, the lining of my intestines, my whole system is functioning well. And when it functions well, I feel the absorption of anything I eat is dramatically increased. So when I was at university in Scotland, I could go toe to toe with a guy on a bottle of whiskey, and still be standing at the end of the night. My tolerance was very, very, very high. Not a good thing, because I drank too much. Now I drink 1 glass of wine and I get 2/3 of the way through, and I'm passing it to whoever wants it, because not only do I get tipsy quicker, it's not a nice tipsy anymore. When I was not eating carnivore and eating a lot more carbs and rice and bread and, vegetables, and my system was slow and sluggish, I could drink more. And when I did get tipsy, it was that, I'm happy, I'm tipsy. Now I get very quickly like a hot face, like a wine flush, and I just don't feel good. And I regret, whenever I do drink, which is rare, I regret it so fast, because it doesn't feel good anymore. And it ties back to this intuition thing. if you stop drinking alcohol for a while and eat carnivore and then drink again, I would be willing to wager that you won't enjoy it like you think that you will. And so that makes quitting easier, because when something's no longer as pleasurable as it was, and you realize that a cocktail is almost the price of a frozen ribeye steak, for me, I'll have sparkling water, San Pellegrino. Like that's how I spoil myself. I buy a bottle of sparkling water, and it gives me more pleasure now than drinking the wine. And again, my family make wine in Italy, so I'm not anti-alcohol. It just doesn't make me feel like it used to. And the same with the caffeine. If a friend is drinking a coffee and I'm asked for a few sips, my reaction to the caffeine is so much more increased. And I think that goes to show that you're only able to introduce all that stuff to your body because you've slowed your intestines and you've damaged your stomach and your intestines so much that what you're putting in isn't really kind of affecting you in the way that it might otherwise. So it was easy for me to quit because on carnivore diet, it just doesn't feel good to drink.
Yeah. Wow. So it almost sounds like your mental attitude about it shifted, as well as your physical ability to handle some of those things.
Yes, absolutely. And that's back to that conversation about this kind of settling down of the mind and the quietening of the mind, and there was an emotional calmness that came with starting to eat meat again. It was like the more I ate meat and the more that I became meat, like I could see my body not gaining muscle, but just coming back. I could see myself coming back into my body, and my body was physically thickening. I feel like I was putting flesh on. I feel like that. I've lost what did you ask me? I've lost track. I'm rambling.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just kind of, I don't know, trying to restate what you said, which is it was almost like a mental shift as well as a physical shift.
Yeah, mental, physical, and emotional. So
okay.
the emotional calming, this sensation of feeling, I felt like I could just take on more. I felt like, for example, if I had a car accident here, I don't speak great Spanish. I don't want to deal with the police because I'm not going to be able to these things that were in my mind before would give me all of this anxiety and this dread, and I would run through things in my mind, and my mind was just a loose cannon all the time. And when I started eating carnivore, it was like a quietening. My mind got quieter, my emotions settled, my anxiety settled, and it made it easier to not drink because I wasn't having a bad day at work that I needed a drink at the end of. I wasn't exhausted from working all day, so I didn't feel the need to come home, collapse on the sofa and drink 2 glasses of white wine, which I did for a long time. That was my life when I worked in the oil field. I worked in the office all day and then went for drinks after work and then got home and drank more drinks. But I wanted to drink then because the alcohol was lifting my mood that was subdued. And now that my mood isn't subdued, I don't need the alcohol the same way that I used to. So the emotional, the mental and the emotional side of it was really startling for me. And I wonder how many people who are struggling with things might get some relief just by changing their diet. I think that if I had ever gone to the doctors, I would have been put on something. I would have been put on a mood stabilizer or an antidepressant or something, because what I would have described to the doctor would have put me in that category for, oh, well, you're not too bad, but let's just put you on a low prescription of this. And again, I'm not saying that it's wrong to take them. There are many people who benefit. There are many people who get relief and can function with the medication, and I support that. But I think there are a lot of people who don't need it and have gone seeking help because they're struggling with stuff that they might not struggle with if their body and their mind was nourished the way that nature designed us, that we've turned away from.
Yeah. So you started to touch on this. So Adrian popped this question up here. So this is Sandra, and she's wondering, in what part of Mexico, and do you speak Spanish? Because you said you don't speak Spanish very well.
I speak very poor conversational Spanish. I can get by. I can go in. I can ask for things. I can have a conversation with the mechanic, and when I'm fixing the car. But I couldn't have a business conversation in Spanish. I couldn't buy a house and have all the my Spanish is just poor conversational Spanish. And of course, it's not Spanish, it's Mexican. So, you know, even if I went to Spain, they would raise their eyebrows at half of what I was saying. So, sí, habla un poquito español, pero no es bien, es horrible. And I'm in
Is minced the same as ground? So we call it ground beef. Is that what minced is? Okay, just wanted to make sure. But we had a question here about, is it possible to purchase the high quality meat in Mexico? Is it more affordable than grass-fed in the USA?
I could take a pack of the grass-fed out my freezer right now and show it to you.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I want to see what grass-fed beef from Mexico looks like. What about you, Adrian?
Yeah,
I've seen some videos from like the UK, but I don't think I've ever seen a package from Mexico.
So this is 80-20 grass mince, ground mince, molida de res in Spanish. You have to be careful in Mexico, like in many places. In America is the same. Europe's a little better because we have stricter laws about what can go in the food. But be careful with your mince because, you know, the writing is incredibly tiny. But sometimes you'll find that there's a lot of stuff added into it. This is a company that's in the Yucatan, which is the part of Mexico that sort of touches the Gulf, you know, on the sort of coming down from Texas. So the Yucatan is on the Gulf of Mexico side. And they produce good meat. They have beef. So this is the Big Beef, which is a ranch in the Yucatan. I don't know if it's like 100% grass-fed all the time, but they're natural, free roaming. You know, it's not a large scale, high intensity meat production facility. It's a ranch. And this is 100% natural, 80-20 mince. From what I understand from the conversation I had in Spanish was that, they were natural diet fed, but not necessarily 100% grass. But they're not eating, they were, it's hormone free, chemical free, additive free. And I think this sets me back. This is a kilo, so it's 2.5 pounds, I think. And it sets me back about 350 pesos, I think. So it's about $16. Does that sound right? Is that about comparable? About $14?
Yeah, if it's $14, that would be about comparable
about
to
14.
What we pay
and I
here,
I can get 6 huge burgers out of it. I mean, that's all I do. I defrost it and I cut the end open and I cut enough off to make a burger and I squeeze it out and squash it in my hands and chuck it in the frying pan with loads of butter.
Perfect. So easy. Yeah. That's one of the things I like about carnivore is that it just simplifies
it's so easy. I mean, once every 2 weeks I go to the meat shop and the guy sees me coming and he's happy because he knows I'm going to drop a load of money and I buy a bunch of this, I buy a couple of New Yorks, I buy a couple of ribeyes, and he's always laughing at me because I'm like digging in the back of the freezer because I want to find all the ribeyes and the New Yorks with the most fat on them.
Yeah.
And it's great because other people don't want the fat. They think that the fatty steaks are the low value ones and they want the ones that have no, you know, so don't tell anybody. But, the best steaks, obviously for me, at least, are the ones with all the fat on them. So I go digging around until I find the fattiest ones and I buy, and I drop a good amount of money. Like I might spend $60, $70, but I'm going to pretty much not need to spend money on food again other than some ranch eggs and some butter and some milk. And that might feed me for a week and a half. And that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 7 days. And I'm working and I'm physical and my job means that I eat a lot of food. So I really think it's more affordable than people think. I think that the problem is that the steak on every restaurant menu is $45. I mean, maybe it's more now. I don't know. Yes. So the association in people's minds is that meat is this high dollar, premium luxury item. And I mean, meat has always been a luxury. And that tells you how important meat is. The kings of old didn't feast on corn and broccoli. They ate pigs and they roasted whole animals. When you went to a feast or a banquet, you ate meat. In almost every culture around the world, if meat was available, meat was the prize. And so we've made meat into this occasional treat, and people that eat meat every day are eating very cheap processed meat. But there's definitely something in the middle. There's something in between spending a fortune eating steaks in restaurants and eating, carnivore by buying the cheapest processed sliced ham. There's so much in between. it takes time to figure out. You have to go to the supermarket and walk around and look at everything and read all the packets. And you go on Facebook and you find a group in the local area and you ask them, like, you know, can I get grass fed anywhere? And it's there. It's just, you know, the last 20 years, it's not been a popular way of producing meat and eating meat. So you have to kind of hunt it out. But I like that you have to hunt it out because, I don't know, it's part of the challenge, isn't it? It's almost like being a hunter-gatherer. Like you have to figure it out, you know? When you travel, it's like, okay, how much beef jerky can I take? How many pounds of beef jerky can I fly with? You know, and which country am I flying into? And where do I need to hide my beef jerky so they don't take it off me at customs? And like for me, it's like the closest thing to being a hunter-gatherer. I have to constantly figure out like how I'm going to source my food and where I'm going to keep it and how long it's going to last me. And, you know, that there's something natural about that, about kind of stockpiling food and, you know, figuring it out as you go. You know, it's intuitive.
And people don't realize when I was making all these recipes, I was buying a ton of ingredients, many of which go bad or are just sitting in my cupboards. And I was spending a ton of money on ingredients. And now I just buy meat and dairy.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
It's so easy. It's so easy. And it's so fun as well when you go into the supermarket and they've got a new butter, they've got a New Zealand grass-fed butter. And, you know, you realize the carnivore diet is getting popular because I go back to the supermarket and this premium butter that probably 3 years ago, the supermarket wouldn't have sold and it would have gone off. It's now sold out in 3 days, you know? So there's people out there, there's definitely people out there who are buying up this stuff, you know? And that's a good thing because the more that we buy it, the more that the supermarkets will supply it, the more that the price will come down. And again, I would love to move away from supermarkets, but I just don't have the luxury here of having. There are great local butchers here. I sort of don't know where they are, and I don't quite have the language skills. But if I was more brave, I wouldn't be hard for me here to drive to a local butcher. And you know, and my dream is to like buy a giant freezer and buy a half a cow every year and just like.
I'm going to do that. I'm doing that.
I do that too.
I'm so excited. I get my half cow. Well, I'm sharing my half cow with my mom and brother, but we get it in June and I'm very excited.
So excited.
I'm not sharing.
Okay, I would keep it all for myself, but my freezer isn't that big because I do have a family of 4 over here and I have to share my freezer space with them. I can't just take all their food out. Hey, we have one more question before we wrap up the questions that I am very curious about, so I definitely want to get to it. So Susie is asking, have you noticed any changes in how your skin or eyes react to sunlight? If anyone would know, you guys, Cara would know because she's in the sunlight all day.
Absolutely. I have dark eyes, so I didn't really have a struggle with the sun before, but I did notice the whites of my eyes improving, and I wear glasses, but I noticed my ability to focus on things without my glasses on is much longer. You know, when before, if I took my glasses off, my eyes would get tired after 30 seconds of looking at the screen, whereas I can now focus. Sometimes I don't even realize that I haven't had my glasses on for a while until I get a headache. So I would say that my we're on the surface and we go down and come back, and then we stay at the surface for a long time, and then we go down and come back. So you might be 2 hours with just this part of you above water. So it's like holding a mirror underneath your face. You have all the sunlight, you know, attacking you from every angle. And if I didn't put sun cream on before, I would end up with, you know, the space in between my hood and my mask. I would end up with, you know, sore, not burnt because I don't burn, but sore, red, tender, angry skin that felt like it had been put through something. And now I again, you know, I don't want to suggest anybody to damage their skin, but me personally, my experience of carnivore is that I really don't need or use sunscreen at all. And I think that the less that I use it, the healthier my skin gets. But again, if I'm doing something where I know I'm going to be on a boat for 6 hours, of course I put a little 20 here and here, and I'm not trying to test my skin. But yeah, big difference in my skin's reaction to sunlight. I don't feel the heat as much. I don't feel, you know, sometimes when you've been in the sun too long, even if you're not burning, your skin feels like it's becoming kind of tight and angry and sore. I don't really feel that. And I feel like my skin got plumpier. It feels like I got almost like a layer of puppy fat under my skin, which I'm happy with.
Yeah.
So yeah, big change.
Amazing.
Okay, well, it is time to spin our meaty wheel, you guys. So I'm going to bring that meaty wheel up. And we're going to give it a spin and see if we can hunt down a question for Cara. And the meaty question is, do you have any advice for anyone who is questioning whether or not they should start a meat-based diet?
Whether or not to start it, I would say that the thing that motivated me to really go feet first was listening to podcasts, and I wasn't getting too bogged down in the science. I was more interested in our evolution, where we came from, how we ate before. And I don't want to get too much into the science, but there's a lot of evidence that we are apex predators. There's a lot of biological evidence, a lot of fossil evidence, a lot of carbon isotope evidence. But science aside, if you're wondering if we should eat that way, there's a lot of evidence that we always did eat that way. And so you're not doing something that's crazy. You're not doing something you're not living on papaya juice for 2 weeks. You're not deciding that you're only going to eat raw vegetables. You're not making a decision to do something that is outside of the normal range of what your body has evolved to do. And if you let your body do what it evolved to do, it's going to reward you. It's going to be optimal. It's going to take care of you back. And so there's an expense. Yes, there's you'll start traveling with bags of jerky in your handbag. There are some weird changes that come along with it. But even though it seems like a strange way of eating, it's really, some people call it the remembering or, ancestral eating. But I believe that we're eating the way that we were designed to eat. And so have confidence in your body. When we teach freediving, we always say to people, look, your body knows how to go to 100 feet. Your body's ready to go to 100 feet. It's only this that's in the way. Right now, the way you are, without any special training or any special equipment, nothing, your body physically can go to 100 feet. It's just this that's in the way. And I feel like it's the same thing with carnivore. Your body knows how to be healthy. Your body knows how to optimize itself. Your body, it's an incredibly complicated machine that, if you can wrap your head around even how long 1 million years is, it's 1 million years worth of evolutionary design. And to kind of put that to one side and say, well, don't worry about that. I'm going to eat raw broccoli every day. Okay, there may be some scientific literature that supports that, but you're turning away from your body's natural evolution and what it was meant to do. And I think that my body thanked me when I gave it what it wanted. So I would say, try to think of it almost like you want to reward your body. You want to do something good for yourself and have a go at it and see how it feels. And if it doesn't feel good for you, at least you tried, just go for it.
Awesome.
Well, Cara, I think you've had the most questions that I've ever seen in interviews. Like, people are they're just really relating and loving your story. You guys should go follow her. I'm going to show her page here, or try to.
I know we still had a couple that we didn't have time to get to, and I do apologize if we didn't get your question, guys, but.
So this is her page over on Instagram. You can also find her on Facebook. Is there anywhere else that I missed, Cara?
No, that's it. I'm old school. I'm just a Facebook and Instagrammer at the moment. So yeah, love freediving. That's me.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me do all the talking.
Oh, we love it when our guests do the talking. It's great. No, you were fantastic, full of energy. We absolutely loved having you. So to everyone out there watching, get your roars ready. Put them in the comments. You guys know what time it is. Let us hear you. And Adrian, would you like to count us down?
3, 2, 1. Roar.
Roar! Yes, Cara gave us a good one. I love it. Hey, look, Ellie's here. Poor Ellie. Her children are sick, but she's in the comments roaring with us. So thank you, Ellie, for roaring right along.
Thank you, Ellie.
And we've got Susie roaring. Thank you, Susie. And Sandra giving us a roar. Bruce. Whoa, a lot of R's there, Bruce. I love it. That's like a growl.
Freediving.
Yes, Bruce. You got to try it now that you're carnivore, Bruce. And yes, my favorite, Eric. Roar, roar, roar. Picanha. Picanha is my favorite meat, Cara. If you haven't tried picanha, give it a shot.
I have not.
Okay,
Oh, it's my favorite too.
But
yeah, I got Adrian converted.
I'm flying to Texas tomorrow, so I'm gonna load up on that grass-fed meat as much as I can.
Get some picanha. Trust me. Just
I will.
Just trust me. Okay, and we've got Tammy roaring. Hi, Tammy. Thank you. And Nia with the roar with the W. I love those. And thank you, David, for meowing because Pixel didn't show her face today, which I know that makes some of you sad. So David with the meow and the meow. All right, everybody. This has been great. Again, thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you next Tuesday with another awesome guest. Good night, everybody.
Good night.